This week we're trying to answer the question, why does God allow suffering? More specifically, where was God when I was suffering? Why would God allow this pain, this tragedy, this heartache, this struggle in my life or in the life of somebody I love? It's a difficult question. It's a question that Jesus followers and non-Jesus followers have wrestled with for centuries. And Sunday we talked about the sovereignty of God. And one of the things that God being sovereign means for us is that nothing happens without His permission. I'll think about that for a second, because there's been some bad things that have happened. I'm confident in your life, but even if you just look around the lives of people you know or look at history, there have been some pretty bad, evil, painful, tragic things that have happened in our world. And if the Bible is to be believed, and I think it is, and if God is who He says He is, and I'm pretty sure He is, then He allowed all those things to happen. Those things happened with His permission. Now, don't mistake permission for approval. You see, it was never, ever God's plan for us to experience pain and heartache and tragedy. Certainly not abuse. It was not part of His plan from the beginning. He created us and He gave us a perfect place to live, and all we had to do was follow a couple of rules, and we couldn't do it, and sin entered the world. And we have been paying the price ever since. Our rebellion against God has left us a system that is broken. And when the system is broken, so are the people who are caught in it. And so although God did give permission for whatever struggle hurt you, it does not mean He approves of it. He did not approve it. He did not want it for you, but He did allow it to happen. And the question of why may never ever be fully satisfied in our brains. But let me give you an example from the New Testament that might help. So Jesus and His followers were very often around the Sea of Galilee, and many of His followers, His disciples, were fishermen, and so they had boats. And in the first century, these were tiny little boats. They were used to go out in the middle of this lake and cast a net and then drag up some fish and take it back to shore. They weren't seagoing vessels. They had very shallow bottoms, and they were very unstable. You can see one if you go to Israel today. It's a first century fishing boat. They call it the Jesus boat. This sea that they would fish on was renowned for very quick, deadly storms coming up. Like at the blink of an eye, a storm could come up over that desert and it would rock that little sea. The Sea of Galilee could become extremely dangerous, and ships were sunk all the time and lives were lost very often. We know for sure that Jesus experienced this twice. The Gospels record 2 times when Jesus and His boys were out on the lake in the middle of a deadly storm. One time, Jesus is in the boat with them, and this storm comes up, and the disciples are freaked out because they know the consequences of being in a storm on the Sea of Galilee. And Jesus is in the front of the boat taking a nap. And when they finally wake Jesus up, He looks around and He says to the storm, "Hey, be quiet." And instantly the storm is gone and they're safe. That's amazing, isn't it? And that's what we want, isn't it? That's what we want from Jesus. We want Him to, once He's aware of our situation, to just speak a word and have it stopped. But there's another time when the disciples are out on the lake, and Jesus is not with them, and a storm comes up. And Jesus comes walking out on the water, and there's an encounter between Him and Peter. And eventually, Jesus and Peter get back on the boat, but the scripture doesn't tell us that He calms that storm. In fact, the disciples have to ride it out. But this time, Jesus is with them in the boat. So why didn't Jesus, after He taught Peter his little lesson, why didn't Jesus just say to the storm, "Hey, be quiet," and stop the storm? Well, I don't know. But in this instance, it was better for the disciples for them to be in a storm with Jesus in the boat with them. And I think that's a lesson that we need to learn, that sometimes, and maybe not as often as we'd like, God would, when you're in a storm, God will just stop the storm. He will just take you out of it. He will take the storm away, or He'll take you away. And what a blessing that is. But sometimes he allows you to just ride it out and wait till it's over. And I don't know why he decides what to do and when to do it, but I do know that he has in mind for you the very best thing for you. And so sometimes he knows that the best thing for you is to ride out a storm with Jesus in the boat with you. That it would be better for you in the long run, it would be better for you somewhere down the line, for you to experience the pain of the storm with Jesus with you. It's better for you to experience that than it is for Jesus just to take it away. And so ultimately it comes down to a matter of trust. Do you trust that Jesus is aware of your situation, aware of your storm, and do you trust that he wants the best for you? Because if he wants the best for you and he's left you in the storm, then the storm is what's best for you. Now, I don't know what you're facing today. I don't know what kind of pain, abuse, or suffering is in your life right now, but I do know that God has given permission for it to be a part of your life. He doesn't approve of it. He doesn't want it to be there. But at some point, he's going to make it right. Somewhere down the line, he's going to make it right. And right in the middle of it, there's Jesus. He's with you. He is with you in the middle of your storm. And going through a storm with Jesus might just be the best thing for you. Why does God allow suffering and abuse and pain? I don't know. But I do know that he can make it good, and he can make you good, and he can heal you. Jesus is in your boat.